Let's move on to the preview for the week. And as always, the preview is brought to you by Ryan from Astute Newstead for those of you that are homeowners, or if you need an extra $500K in Supercoach, I'm told that he can look after you as well, which we all do. But on a serious note, if your interest rates are above 6.2% and maybe you want to buy a home, or maybe you want to refinance, renovate, maybe you even want to save some money like the rest of us, then you can hit up Ryan from Astute Newstead for an obligation and a cost-free inquiry. His link tree is in the description below. Now, lots of buy, hold, sell action this week, guys. When I was looking at this list, I'm like, oh, I can buy him. I feel like a kid at a candy store. I could buy him. I could grab him. Maybe he's a buy this week. So let's talk about the buys for the week.
Targets acquired.
I don't like how we've put the first one here because Mattrix and I spent about 20 minutes saying that he's not a buy on Sunday, but situations change. That's Ryan Pappenhausen coming back. I look like an absolute mug because I said with the form of Suafangalongo, I could see a world where he's brought back through the Falcons and Mattrix agreed, but no, Bellamy just named him first game back. Braino, you've been pretty adamant that he hasn't. Or physio reckons that there's no risk of return, like he's going to return to performance at basically peak, which is fantastic. At 692K this week, taking on someone favourable, the Dolphins, in the 8 o'clock slot on the 21st of June. Break even at 61. What do we reckon about Pappy boys? Because 700K, not a great price to buy him at first game back and not goal kicking. We compared him to a Aldi version of Reece Walsh if he isn't goal kicking. But as Insight Unlimited members will find out, he may feature in at least two of our trades.
What do you reckon, Mattrix? Because we've floated around with these options with Pappy.
Yeah, we did float, and it's fine to be on the phone to some of you guys and then go, oh yeah, I could get Pappy. And then realistically, when you have a look at 690K, not goal kicking, averaging a 73, does have a low score of 30, high score of 132. I'm just he's had 100 this year, and that's in 9 games. And that's not enough for me to get Pappy, especially when I know he's not goal kicking. I know that the Storm are hot, but that's not necessarily a good thing. The Storm are hot and could still probably find a way to rest him at times, knowing Bellamy. He'll look after his team and his players probably more than anyone else I know.
He does have a very juicy 3 weeks. I've been very vocal about the Tom Trbojevic glazing that I will be attending to later in the season. But the Dolphins this week, Raiders...
What's that? Can you explain what a glazing is?
Urban Dictionary is your friend. Dolphins this week, Raiders next week, and the Tigers in round 18, followed by a bye in 19. So if you do have trades up your sleeve, and when I say trades, I probably mean 17 plus, to be able to go Pappy in and then just punt him for Turbo or punt him for maybe another Origin fullback / center that we are advocating towards selling. KP's back around 20 as well. So if you got the trades, I don't hate Pappy as a 3-week play.
I'll tell you what, there's been some mixed emotions around the Pappenhausen trade-in, hasn't there, this week? We've been like, oh, maybe I like Pappy. I initially said if Pappy's back this week, I don't mind grabbing him. Then I looked at my team and realised I already have fucking 700 Storm players. So I'm unsure how I feel about that. But yeah, look, at the price at 680K or whatever he is, with a nice matchup this week, I think you'd be silly not to at least look at it.
And I think Adam88 makes a really good point as well. The game he did get injured, he scored, 75 points in a half. So because he did get injured, his break even isn't massive. He's not coming back to a 150, 160 break even. So it's not like you're going to buy him and cop a massive hit like some spastic sport Reece Walsh with 150 break even and proceeded to lose 150K in 3 weeks. But yeah, he's got a very, very manageable break even. If he does pump out 70s for the next 3 weeks, you can just flip him to Turbo. Or even just have 800K sitting there if you want to sell him in 19. Because, most of us are going to have Katoa, Hughes, Grant, and now Pappy as well.
Hamish Hunter's asked a relevant question, Pappy or CNK. We'll talk to you about that very soon.
That's a good segue into our... we'll skip number 2, but yeah, it's a good segue into number 3, which is CNK. Braino?
Yeah. We can touch CNK. You seem to be skipping over one particular player, probably because you already own him. So that's
I just thought it's a good segue if we're talking about Pappy or CNK.
We're all here for a segue. I like it. I'll quickly go back to Pappy. So people worried about the injury and the re-injury risk from physio himself has said that expect Pappy back around 16 or 17 with minimal performance concerns or re-injury risk on return. So he seems pretty confident that due to the fact that it was just a fracture above that plate from last year's surgery, that most people would have fractured their fibula in that instance with the load that went down on it. So people can be kind of confident injury-wise with Pappy coming back and being able to pick him from round one or game one.
I guess it is also a sign of confidence that he hasn't come back through Reggie's. Like if Bellamy's happy to just like the Storm are first on the ladder, and I don't think Bellamy gives two craps about the minor premiership. If I'm just trying to align the stars. It's promising that he has come straight back into first grade, so it's not like this year where he came back through the Falcons for a couple of weeks. So I guess that's also a positive to take away as well.
Yeah, absolutely. CNK was the segue, so we'll move on to CNK. Looking at CNK's numbers this year, like when we look at the season that he has had, you wouldn't pick him as I think he's a fifth or sixth highest average in the whole competition. So if we go back and have a look at his scores, I'm quickly 750k averages. I hate this interface. I'm still not
80.
used to it.
He averages 80.
It's one score below 60 all year, and that's a 40 in round 9. Like it's been 88, 96, 77, 90, 72, 95, 101, 65.
And look, no one expected that. No one thought, he's a must-have. And I still don't think he's a must-have. And the one thing that is playing in his favour at the moment is that obviously he does play the major bye this week, but he plays the Titans who concede the most tries to fullbacks. So if you're looking for a bit of a captaincy pod this week and you want to take a punt on Chance, I think it's a really nice option. He's got the Broncos, but they're backing up from Origin. They've got a few guys out as well. Cobbo playing with injections, all that kind of stuff, into the Bulldogs in round 18. So you're probably getting him for this matchup more than anything for Chance. But the one thing you need to worry about with Warriors players in general is the fact that they don't play round 27. So if you're loading up on your SJs, your CNKs, all of these, Adam Fanua-Blake, all of these popular Warriors options.
Alan Wateni Zalesniak.
Yeah, all-star centering option.
Yes. You got to worry about round 27. So that's one thing to consider with CNK, but a really nice play if you've got trades up your sleeve, in my opinion. Thoughts, Mattrix?
Yeah, it's not a sexy pick. Like, it's a high score of 101, a low score of 40, and averaging 80. I think it's super safe. It's like captaining David Fafita, getting this guy in your team. It's like a Dylan Edwards light. I'm not sure if I see too many 140s in the foreseeable future between now and the end of the season, but I don't see too many, 50s as well. Like, I think that you can expect 80 from him most weeks, the way that the Warriors have been playing.
Which is serviceable, very serviceable. So you'd be happy this week as well. The matchup is nice. So it's the week to get him. If you don't get him this week, I don't think there's really much point getting him moving forward, especially with your turbos coming back in round 18 and all of that. But here's another segue. Josh, you want to take this one away?
It does. And great point, mate. And says Tedesco is the play. They want to finish top 4 from here. Storm the rest Pappy if they clear a few competition points. And I very much agree. I think James Tedesco is the number one buy option this week. It's an eye-watering price. It's not cheap. You're buying him for 873k. We could have got him for like 550 about 6 weeks ago, but he's clearly not favoured in Origin. I mean, we all said he was fine in game 1, like not enough to be dropped if you didn't need to be, but they've gone back to Edwards, who was the priority in game 1, and Tedesco's, back in rounds, game 2 and game 3. Like, I don't think he plays the Bulldogs this week with a 36 break even. It's never fun to pay this much for a player, is it, boys? But I think he is the clear-cut fullback one at the moment. I still think Turbo will be the fullback one for the run home. I'm going to stand by that. But from everyone available right now, it's very hard to pass up the form of Tedesco. He has been in, I don't want to say career best form because he's had a very, very good career, but we can look back basically from round 8 moving forward. 81, 112, 88, 79, 151, 98 for a low score there of 79 in the past 7 weeks. It's not a bad run, is it?
Nah. I mean, you talked about safe picks. Mattrix being CNK is a safe pick. I reckon Teddy's a safer pick. just knowing that the kind of workload that he's getting through and the draw for the Roosters is probably the best draw or close to it for the run home as well. If we quickly throw it up on the screen, we see round. I can't actually see it on my screen for some reason.
It's very, very good.
Yeah,
it's the Bulldogs into the Tigers, into the Dragons, into a bye round 19, which isn't ideal. There's one hard matchup against the Storm, which the Roosters have been the 5th best team, so not the biggest issue. But then into the Sea Eagles, Dolphins, another bye, Eels, Titans, Raiders, Rabbitohs, like the list goes on. They've played their hard matchups. It's easy street for the Roosters going forward.
It's Teddy time by the looks of things. The only concern is, do you have Walker? Do you have Terrell May? Do you have Dom Young? Do you have Manu? You know, how many Roosters is too many Roosters, Josh, when you're looking at, you know, loading up on one team?
I think if you have the cover, then it's not too bad. I mean, you just probably won't want to have more than 4 because round 25, round 23 will hurt. Round 19 you can cover because we're playing best 13. But yeah, round 23 is the play. It's an absolute glorious run home. I think Tedesco and Trbojevic are the fullback combination for me for the run home.
I'm looking at trading Teddy in this week, which will give me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Roosters. But I've just resigned to the fact that, hey, maybe I just trade Terrell May out to get Teddy in. And, like, obviously not a direct trade, but Terrell May in the next coming weeks. And, yeah, it'll be okay because, you know, Manu will score well, Dom Young will score well, Teddy will score well, Angus Crichton's been a revelation this year. I'm okay with playing all those guys because they're nearly the best at each of their positions, to be honest, for Supercoach. Yep.
I think we can agree with Josh that Teddy by the week, even at his price. So we can move on to one that's a little bit more contentious. I mean, look, let's probably skip past David Fifita is a little bit of a no-brainer, I guess, for this week, considering he covers around 16 and 19. You know, obviously coming off that what we call an ankle issue last week, seemed precautionary. Hasn't been picked for Origin, seems to be out of favour with Billy Slater there. I don't know what's going on behind the scenes there, but not playing Origin, great for Supercoach. Titans play 16 and 19. They miss 17s, and for the most part, we probably can cover 17 pretty comfortably. So any kind of things to bring up on David Fifita, Mattrix?
No, not really. I do think now that he hasn't been selected for Origin 2, like my wariness has always been I would select him if I was a trust in Billy and all that stuff. Look, Fifita's playing this week. Looks to be playing round 19 as well. He's the best second row forward option for Supercoach. It makes sense. The only reason I didn't have him earlier on in the season was I didn't want him through this Origin period where we would miss a heap of games. He's playing, so just get him.
Yeah, I think that was the reason why myself and a lot of people held off. Was it round 7 or 8 when the Titans looked at us and we were like, well, why would we buy a premium player in an arse team that's going to miss half the season? But yeah, Kurt Capewell is a far and away better player than David Fifita in the eyes of Billy Slater, and that's
Brendan
great
Piakura
for those players.
well.
Oh, yeah, and Brendan Piakura, Felice Kafusi. Yeah, so I mean, it's great for us.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Couple of interesting ones now, maybe not as straightforward. Jaden Campbell. Now, I'll admit I wasn't a huge fan when you brought this one up last week. And I mean, look, you're acting like Jaden Campbell came out and scored fucking Supercoach record. So calm your tits, would you? Fucking 75 points last week is not 170.
It did look like a lot more, didn't it? It was like it was the Gutho effect. It looked like it was 140.
He looked like he was in fucking everything. You know, but. Is there any caution?
Just as a base power of about 5 across 80 minutes, so it doesn't do any work.
Has to do a lot. But the Titans score points, and he is an attacking player, and he's always going to be in and around the ball. So, you know, I don't hate it. I'm just looking at fullback and looking at 5'8" and going, well, I've got Galvin and Brown. Don't really want to trade him in at 5'8". I held Galvin for this reason. And then also, do I really want him at fullback? Like, the answer is probably no. It's just an awkward duel to have at the moment, I think, when you're looking at really solidifying the run home and getting in these gun fullbacks like your Teddies, your CNKs, your Trells later on. Turbo and Pepe's back this week, Mattrix. So, like, any love for Campbell?
No, I'm just going to be staying away. Like, if it was, it would be at 5/8, and I don't want to be burning trades in that mid position, to be honest. So, yeah, unless you're really just off Galvin or somebody. But if I want a 5/8 that plays for a shit club, I'll just play Galvin or Cody Walker, to be honest. So,
Big words coming from a man whose team didn't win last week.
yeah, I know. Sorry, I can't hear you from. I know we're 9th, but
You're in our
talking to
spot, mate.
somebody who's a lot further.
You're in our spot. No, look, Campbell, I think he works for a very specific team. And I think that team is if you own Chan and Plath. I think that's probably the only way that I'd look at bringing him in. And that's what I was going to do last week, like via Chan out, Plath to 2RF, and then Campbell in. As much as, I give you shit about the terrible call, like it is something worth considering. You got Brimson to come back. And Mattrix and I had this conversation on Sunday, like 3 doesn't go into 1. I mean, I wasn't too great at school, but 3 doesn't go into 1. As much as JC was great for Supercoach, I mean, the Titans scored 10 points with Keeney and JC, in the spine. So it's going to be an interesting time for them moving forward. But yeah, I'm less keen on the idea now. I would have rather buy last week with the Tigers matchup and, the better price.
Mate, while you're there, talk to us about this last guy, because he's another guy that's floated around in trade iterations for Maxwell Mania this week.
Yes. Jermaine Asako. He is my Sifa Talakai. As much as I keep telling everyone I don't hate Sifa Talakai because I got on at the right time and got off at the right time, Asako last year, I think I bought him in like around 14. And he proceeded to average probably 60 for the rest of the season. And that sounds great, but he was averaging about 85 when he wasn't in my team. So I'm a little bit scarred on him, but we see Herbie's moved to the left. And Herbie's looked really, really great, which is going to open up space for Asako on the right. Probably the least priority buy for us this week on this podcast when we sort of rank them in order. He does have the Melbourne Storm this week, which isn't the greatest matchup of all time. We saw Supercoach stalwart Dallin Martinez-Lesniak scores 13 last week in that, and they're a really great defensive unit. They haven't lost anyone that would hinder their edge defense too badly. So I don't mind picking him up, but probably don't expect the world from him this week. But obviously a great run home, covers 19 as well.
The one thing to consider this week, Mattrix, for Jermaine Asako would be the fact that he Farlogo named on the wing for Xavier Coates. He's running at Farlogo's wing. So maybe a different combination there could muck things up and give Asako a bit of an advantage over that side.
I mean, Asako's a big lad, and Farlongo is one of those smaller fullbacks. I was actually surprised to kind of see him there. So, yeah, I mean, if I was drawing up the game plan, it would be Asako running at Farlongo, 100%.
Yeah,
Justice for Grant Anderson.
yes, absolutely. But I think Will Warbrick's back on the other side, so I think that's why we see Farlongo there. But I assume Farlongo either drops out or goes to 14 next week when we see Xavier Coates come back from Origin. So regardless, we'll talk about the Storm a little bit later. But those are the buys for this week. And what happened to Alex Johnston, Josh? Ian wants to know.
I'm still looking at him, like, as much as he's actually terrible, like, I'm still looking at AJ. 405. Bro, AJ's 405k with a 69 break even. In saying that, they're playing a bunch of, I wouldn't even say New South Wales Cup players this week. I'd say like below New South Wales. They're playing like Div 2 country rugby players this week. So he could score 140 and break Ken Owen's record in one single game. But if he has another stinker, we were talking about Isaac Tungo as like a buy at like 400k with Cleary back. I mean, AJ at 370 could also be a jump on.
Well, he plays 16 and 19, so it's kind of like, fuck, I really want to take advantage. If I'm going to get AJ, it might be this week because I want to take advantage of the fact he's got the 2 major buys up his sleeve. But they do have the buy in round 17 then, so you'd have to pick him up 18 if you were going to wait this week.
Also, no Trell.
I've already got Sam Hughes. I've already got Sam Hughes if I want a shit score.
No Latrell to swing left, and Cody playing predominantly on the right probably does hinder me a little bit, just in that sense. Yeah, fair call.
All right, let's move on to the holds. 4,020 people don't agree. Sorry,
just
Josh,
quickly on AJ, he could also score 100 and only go up 30k. So it's he could also score 3 tries and still get 50. So it's definitely a roulette.
maybe if you need the number for this week, it could be an option this week. Otherwise, if you've got 13 or 14, I wouldn't worry. But Ruben Garrick, 4,020 people have traded out Ruben Garrick. He's got 122 break even. But the big kicker, I guess, is that he does miss this first major buy. But I think he's a hold purely because he's going to play round 19. So they've still got another major buy to come. He would have missed round 17 anyway due to the Manly buy. So I think we are missing one game and it is important, but he is still, I think, a top 4 centre wing for the run home and a guy that you're going to want to keep when we look at this Manly draw, Josh. We keep talking about it and probably the reason why you love looking at Turbo.
Exactly. If I'm sitting here going to be Turbo's number 1 stand, you have to give Garrick his flowers. The draw at home is exceptional. He was always missing next week, so that hasn't popped up new for you. And yeah, I mean, it sucks this week, but if I had Garrick, yeah, I'd be frustrated, but I wouldn't be selling. I said to you boys, I'm going out of my way to do what I can to bring him in, whether it be 18 or 19. I'd love to have that Turbo Garrick stack.
Yeah, absolutely. Mattrix, was that you that loaded up our friend here at the top?
Oh, yeah.
It's all yours,
Yeah,
mate. I'm getting rid of it as fast as I can. It's all yours.
Yeah, look, Joey Lussick, at least he's not going to drop any more cash this week because we know that he won't just slide onto the bench and score you sub 10. And your 420k guy 3 weeks ago that's now worth 270 won't completely ruin your score of your team. And I had planned on trading him out at some stage, but now I can't trade him to anyone. So it looks like Joey Lussick is a hold for the rest of the year. So come on, guys. Join me
I don't
here.
know. I see they have the buy, but I still wouldn't be surprised to see Polo bench for Offhang and Lussick come onto the bench. Even against the buy this week, I wouldn't be shocked.
I mean, we've seen the Supercoach app just wig out and give Blaze Talangi 2 points when he wasn't even on the field that week. So, funnier things have happened. So you just don't know with Joey Lussick. He would find a way to sneak onto the field for the fucking Rabbitohs this week or something and score 2. But yeah. No,
in which case he's a trade out if he's scoring 2. But he scored the best 5 you've ever seen in your life. I tell you what, if you're looking to win games, bring Joey Lussick on for the last 10 minutes, I reckon. Thanks, Trent.
I think Ian brings up Jaden Brayley as well. I think he's in a similar boat to Lussick. Brayley has such a weird role. Like he was starting and going well, like he was scoring well for Supercoach, but he made a lot of defensive errors last week when he came off the bench. If he doesn't play this week, which is great, so he's not going to lose any cash. But if you had Brayley, like, what are you doing?
Oh, it sucks because I hate making trades at hooker, and this is probably what I was trying to avoid: is making too many back and forth trades at hooker. It just depends who your hooker 1 is, really. I'm assuming you don't have a Brayley at hooker 1 and a fucking Danny Levi or a Lussick at hooker 2. I'm hoping you don't. If you do, then you probably need to go Brayley and find some cash and get up to someone reliable. But yeah, it's tough. Like, do you nuff? We've talked a lot about nothing in this podcast and how we feel about nothing moving forward. And I think that there are a couple of players at the moment this week we might talk about later that you can probably jump on at a bit of an advantage that might drop out of the team relatively soon. So we'll talk about them. But I'd probably lean to selling Brayley just purely because of the same issue as Joey Lussick personally.
Yeah, so I'm in the same
hooker 1.
Yeah, and I'm in the same position as IJ here. I don't think that I'll be making a trade at hooker till round 26 when I need one, which is the West Tigers' next buy. So Appy's playing every week. If Appy breaks a leg, then, hey, I'm going to have to make a trade. But apart from that, it's round 26. Lussick could be 205k by then or 186. I don't think Brayley's going to have those lows, but yeah, you could be in a similar situation. So just play Appy every week. You don't want a second hooker anyway.
Also, Harry Grant also plays out the rest of the season. So if you do have Harry Grant as your hooker 1, he plays out the rest of the season. He only misses 19, which he was missing regardless. So he actually has no more buys for the rest of the year as well. So, and 19 is good because you don't actually need a full team. So probably just hold and assess if you have Brayley, just depending on your hook combination. But yeah, if you have Brayley and Levi or whatever, then probably go find religion and seek God. Apart from that, I would just be holding.
Good shout. Lucky Galvin, boys, still being relatively well sold this week. I'm not quite sure whether this is a delay on last week or maybe people haven't paid too much attention yet, or maybe these trades are when people see the red and white dot there. that's probably influencing a few of these decisions. But he's definitely a hold this week. Covers 16, covers 19. I know the Tigers haven't been good, Mattrix, but he's been good enough in a bad team to average 57 this year as a guy who's come in and not even played any reserve grade football straight into first grade as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, if we're talking about Jaden Campbell in a bad team as being a buy, definitely we should be talking about Lockie Galvin as a hold. Has he topped out? Yeah, probably. But who else are you going to go to? Like Jaden Campbell? That sounds like the most sideways trade in the world. The draw is okay for the West Tigers. He has shown that he can score points against decent opposition in losses as well. He's a spark. He's young. Look, Lockie Galvin could be a 5'8" that we're talking about for Supercoach for the next 5 years. Just be patient. Hold on.
I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. Like, he is currently the 5'8", 11 when you're talking on overall averages, which sounds like it's not great. But the difference between him being 5'8", 11 and him being 5'8", 5 is 4.5 points. So it's very, very condensed. Like Luai is the 5'8", 5 with 62 points a game, and that's boosted by a massive 130 last week. And Galvin's the 5'8", 11 at 57.2. So it's 5 points between him being 11th and 5th. It's very condensed. And there's no one really to buy. I mean, Matt Burton, maybe I'd go up to him, but even then, the Bulldogs have the Roosters this week, and who knows what's happening with them. So
trades are becoming scarce as well. We're at a point where we're looking at trades every week and going, fuck, I've only got 12 trades, I've only got 15 trades, whatever. Like, and you said 17 maybe would be the threshold where you'd be able to play a little bit more freely, Josh, but for me, I've got 15, and I last week was looking at it going, no, I can't afford to go Galvin out because then I'm probably going to want the next person that I traded in. It would have to be a Cody Walker and just hold for the season then, really, wouldn't it?
It's a different story if you have like Tomato Martin, because he's like 700k with a ballooned average of 68. And that's coming down now with SJ back. But Galvin's performed week in, week out. He doesn't have huge outlier scores that really boost it up. I mean, I wouldn't be making a trade for marginal. Like, I wouldn't be going sideways to Cody Walker. Whereas like Tomato Martin down to Cody Walker, yeah, it's still a trade, but you're also netting yourself like 40k and probably a better play if they run home. So I just wouldn't be making sideways trades at this point of the season for minimal upside.
Yep, fair call. Blaze Talangi's another one, guys, that is being sold off at the moment. Just top 600k. He's being picked pretty regularly now on the wing for the Eels. I don't know whether that sticks or whether that stays. I think how long's Bailey Simonson out for? Is it a while?
This season.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So he's probably got that spot, doesn't he? That right wing spot for the rest of the year. So, I mean, I think he's a hold for now anyway, but I assume people are probably going up and looking for round 16 coverage Mattrix if they're moving on to Talangi this week.
Yeah, I can probably get around it, but it depends what you're doing with the trade, I suppose. He is a playable option on the wing going forward. But yeah, if you're using him to downgrade to get, a genuine captain option this week, somebody that has excellent buy coverage, I can get around it. But apart from that, like, I'd be fine with playing Blaze every week on the wing. Looks really dangerous on the wing as well.
Yeah. Look, round 19 is going to be tricky, Josh, as well. Like, I feel like maybe round 19 could be the trickiest of the three major buys coming up that we've kind of all just thrown on the back burner to focus on the first two.
Yeah, because 13... it's always in our mind. So we're always sort of mini planning for 13. And then it just comes at you pretty quick. You've got mini buys the week after all the major ones. So you're always trying to work out the direction to go. I'm probably more in the Blaze sell camp. But the only problem is there's no one to sell to. We said on Sunday, Joey Mano at 750k at center feels disgusting. Most people have Dom Young. Lomax is on a buy and at Origin. Val, he's potentially a sell. Like, we're talking about maybe selling Val. Brian To'o's on the buy, and then you've got like Karaz, who's now been named at center. You've got Ruben Garrick that's out. Maybe Asako, but like Blaze to Asako, I don't know. It doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence at the moment, especially not this week with the draw. So it's like, yeah, let's just hold. He has an 80 on break even, which isn't ideal, but if he gets 40, he may lose 35k, and you're still selling him at 570 the week after next. So I'm fine to just hold and reassess.
Yeah, I think if you're set for this week, you definitely hold him because he's a valuable round 19 number, I think. But this last guy, Kai Pearce-Paul, has been on. We talked about him earlier in the show, Josh, as a potential sell and someone that you were looking at selling. And I think, look, if you can use that cash to get up to a genuine keeper and a guy that you can rely on is going to be in your scoring 17 or your best 17 for the run home every single week, then sure, I can get around it. But if you don't need the number this week, he's going to be back next week. Barry Toohey said that it was, I think, a toe issue, and he'll be back on deck next week and will cover the round 19 buy. So same kind of situation as Talangi on this one. And it depends on the trade that you're making. But for me, I'm holding Kai Pearce-Paul personally. But Josh, you might be moving him on. So I guess a good little look at both sides.
Yeah, not sold. Probably leaning towards holding than selling, but I can definitely get behind selling. The problem is we look at the top 10 2RFs and there's only two that I'd want. In Dave Fafita and Nelly Katoa. I mean, Crichton's out, Yo's out, Hamole's out, Hudson Young, as much as we love him on this podcast, it's a bit
love him.
Hopgood's out, Carrigan's out, Aiken, his value is probably more at centre wing. Lucas is out, Nanai is out. And then you're moving to Elliot Whitehead, who is somehow the 2RF 12 with an average of 63.2. Like, there's no one in that top 15 that I'd really want. So unless you had the jewels, unless you're trading out like KPP, moving Plath up, or, bringing in a premium front row forward, like, AFB, I'd probably would opt to hold and just reassess what happens next week. If he is benched, then we're probably having a different conversation next week.
And a bit of chat, Mattrix, in the chat at the moment, in the live chat, that KPP to Hamoli Olakawatu very soon in the next couple of weeks could actually be a handy little pickup when he bottoms out.
Fuck, I wish he didn't score so well this week, because I was waiting for him to bottom out. He just sort of won't bottom out where I would like. But yeah, KPP to Hamoli's always going to be lovely for the run home. We talk about the great draw for Manly. Of course, Hamoli plays for Manly. If you're excited about, Turbo Garrick through that period, Hamoli's going to score very well as well.
I just want to mention the chat quickly. There is a bunch of really good questions. We aren't ignoring them. We do have them starred. So hang around to the end of the episode. Like Agent Cheese has put a really good one in. Grimes, he's put another one in. Warren Coates. Like, there's really good questions coming to the chat. We aren't ignoring them, but if we answered every question, we'd be here for 2.5 hours. So we will rattle through those starred ones at the end of the episode.
Yeah, I think we've got 17 at the moment. It'll probably end up with like 20 odd.
17, and we're only 25% of the way through the podcast.
Yes. We'll get to them. We promise. But guys, we should move on. The buys and holds are done. Well, let's talk about the sells this week. Who we should move on. Now, the first one on the list is a guy that we've got an argument in the chat here that we should probably be holding is David Armstrong. Now, there probably is an argument if you've got a tinfoil hat on and you're trying to come up with reasons to hold David Armstrong. He did play on the wing in Reggie's this week as maybe a way for a pathway forward to play NRL on the wing. Mattrix, what are your thoughts on this? Do you buy into this? No?
Great chat, Mattrix.
From Mattrix, yeah. I think he's.
I think
Mattrix and everything. Yeah, he's on mute. He's muted himself somehow. Anyway,
yeah.
No, sorry, my mic muted itself. Yeah.
Good. What do you think on Armstrong?
The answer's no.
No to what? Are you selling, or are you not a fan of Armstrong?
No, there's no reason to hold Armstrong. Like, the wingers have been fine. Like, he's not taking Tuala's spot. Like, you're just trying to find a reason. He's 450k. You can use that money elsewhere. Just nuff and get Teddy, or you probably wouldn't even want to play Armstrong on the wing regardless. Like, what do we like playing Greg Marju on the wing? He's shit as well.
I think he's a fine hold this week, only due to the fact of what we just said about 2RF and center wing. There's no one this week. Like, there's no premiums this week. I have 13 players this week, and I have one of them in center wing. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots in my center wing that aren't green, and I have a full squad for this week. So I don't mind holding, and then assessing what happens next week, or potentially looking at trading him on next week to a Lomax, to a To'o, to a Koraz if he gets back on the wing. There's just no one this week that I want to pick up. So he's probably fine this week unless you are going up to a Dom Young, or if you're a sicko for pain and you want to pay 800k for Joey Manu. Apart from that, there's not really many, or a Sarko, I guess. If you had 150k in the bank, jumping onto a Sarko would be fine.
And the logic could be, Ian in the chat mentioning next week, if you hold him, you can just move him to Fletcher Sharp if he isn't named, which you've got to have the duel for that, but I'm assuming we do with Iro and Garrick and everybody else floating around. If you've got the duels, it might be a nice move next week. Yep, cool.
This next one's going to be
Go for it.
spicy.
This one's yours, mate, because you're the only owner.
Trell Mitt, scandalous. I'm going to get slammed. But Latrell Mitchell, boys, it wasn't 5 weeks ago that we said Angus Crichton, the best player in the game, is a sell because he played 1 game out of 4. Obviously, that 1 game, he scored still another 100 points. Well done. But that's still only an average of 25 per week that he wasn't playing. Trell Mitt misses this week, misses next week, which people probably don't realize. Plays 18, misses 19. So he plays 1 game out of the next 3. And I think it's different at fullback because we do have a couple of options. We have a discounted Pappenhausen coming back. We have other center wings to purchase if you did want to go there by moving some jewels around. And do we think Trell is one of the top 2 fullbacks to run home? Maybe. But I think you can do more with the cash by selling him and getting that high ceiling player over the next 3 weeks.
Yeah, I'd be a hypocrite if I said that Latrell Mitchell wasn't a sell, but Angus Crichton was. So I think that's just the logic, isn't it? Like, even if Troll comes out and scores 150 in round 18, he's going to score 150 over 4 weeks and he's going to average 45 or whatever that is. So, yeah, that's probably my thought process behind that. And then, you look at trying to get him back for the run home if you really want to, or you look at the plethora of options we're going to have at fullback for the run home in Teddy, Turbo, Pappy. Dylan Edwards is another guy we're going to be talking about for the run home as well, considering how great he's been. So, yeah, we've got so many options there that a guy at that price now, playing 1 in 4, not for me.
I've made my bed, so I'm probably going to lie in it, but I think I would probably hold Latrell, being in the same position as I was with Angus Crichton. I'm holding. I've built depth all year. I haven't really nuffed out or got anybody awful that I wasn't okay with trading. Have I dropped 5,000 spots in the last couple of weeks? Yeah, I probably have, but I think that I'm in good stead for the run home by just holding these guys, not wasting a trade to get them out and getting them back. Because I hear you guys a little bit off channel, like panicking. How are we going to get Angus Crichton back in? And I'm going to bet that maybe one of you don't have the trades to get Angus Crichton back in. Just don't trade out Latrell. If you 100% want him for the run home, I think if you trade Latrell to Teddy or somebody, then you could just run with Teddy on the way home. Whereas with Angus Crichton, anybody I was trading him to, I wasn't going to keep for the run home. But yeah, I could probably get around holding him as long as your second fullback isn't playing Origin.
Yep. Yeah, pretty good summary. Next one, Scotty Drinkwater. It's very rare, isn't it, that we would chuck up a guy with a 80 plus 5-round average up for sell, but he does not play around 16. He does not play around 19, and the Cowboys looking pretty ordinary with all of the options now popping up at fullback. Josh, I think it's time to jump off. Drinky's done his job if you bought him in round 8 or 9 or whatever it was into that nice little run for the Cows, but it's time to jump.
This one's all yours because I posted he was a straight out on Instagram last week. And I got absolutely rinsed. And people were in my DMs after he scored 90 being like, hey, you're a clown. Why would you trade him? Blah, blah, blah. But you're right. Like, he plays minimal games for the next month. And that's the big thing. Like, don't just look at players in a vacuum for 1 week and look at them at scores as to 1 week. Because I could give you plenty of fullbacks that will score more points than Scott Drinkwater between now and round 20. They might not average the same, but they'll score you more points. And that's the main thing. But
also, you've got to look at what you're doing with the cash to get, like last week I traded Scott Drinkwater to get Jerome Hughes and I ended up ahead. So, who's the clown? When you're making moves like this, you also got to look at who's coming in for that player. And I think when we're looking at now Drinky playing 2 in the next 4, and he goes and plays, who have they got in the next 2 games? So he misses this week. Then he comes up against Penrith. They come up against Penrith in round 17, which is going to be a tough one for Drinky. They come up against a Manly team with Turbo back. And Garrick back as well. DCE, you'll obviously won't have Origin to back up from, so he'll be good to go for round 18. For me, I think it's pretty clear cut, and then he misses now 19 Mattrix. So anything else to add on Drinky?
Yeah, look, he's been Scotty Drink Bolter in some of the games that he plays, but yeah, availability is the best ability, and I know I'm saying hold Latrell, which I think's a little bit different because I think he's a lot better than Scotty Drinkwater as well. But like, if you've got Latrell and Scott Drinkwater, you've probably got to pull the trigger on one of them. And I'm saying Scott Drinkwater's probably a better trade out than some of these Origin guns. There's a reason all these other guys get picked for Origin because they're the best players in the game. So.
Yeah. And I guess, we're talking about the run home, and we had a couple of, I think Haggy in the chat says that Drinky plays 6 out of 8 at the end of the season games at home. But we also look at their draw, and they play Penrith Bulldogs, who are great defensively. They play the Sharks, they play the Broncos, and they play the Melbourne Storm, and then they play the Bulldogs again in round 27. So it is a very tough run for the Cowboys.
5 of the best 8 defenses in the game. So it's
so regardless of whether they play at home or not, like, you got to look at the opposition too. Cool. Liam Henry, pretty obvious one.
Oh, my boy. No, I can't believe it's finally happened. I agree with this wholeheartedly, but it's sad. It's sad to see him go, isn't it?
Yeah, I punted him last week with a 0 break even. I don't know whether I loved it, but I got Joey Tarpany in, and my front row forward is set for the year now. So, it kind of made sense. I ended up ahead on points, which is great, but he's definitely a move on now. Penrith don't play 16. They don't play 19 Mattrix. It's a bit of a no-brainer from here, isn't it?
Yeah, no, King Henry V did his job, didn't he?
Boys, he's made us 280k. What a champion. And we can never forget those historic run of 74, 76, 82 from him. It was good times.
Oh, so good. When we needed him as well, really.
Especially in 13 and 14. We were down on troops in 13. We were down on troops in 14, but he delivered with 150 points across those 2 weeks. What a champion. But yes, looking at moving him on now, you could hold for another week, I guess, a 41 break even. He's never going to go too well above that unless he scores some tries, which is unlikely. But it's a pretty plain Jane trade, this one. He's made us nearly 300k and pretty much topped out in price, which is great. Yep.
And we've got one guy on the sell list that it's an easy let go, but it's a bit of an emotional killer, this one. And I actually got a sound bite specifically for this player. This is it.
Brother, what's that?
And that's been Dallin Watene-Zelezniak's season, unfortunately, in Josh's team.
So, is it? Are you making my trades for me? Because right now he's still smack banging my centre wing and probably not.
Gross. Get rid of him. Move him on.
He's a keeper.
Mate, he made money last week. He scored 13 and made cash.
Look,
I think it's situational. If you want that high upside centre wing, then sure. I mean, I bought him last week, so I'm probably not going to trade him out after selling him for a 300k loss a couple weeks beforehand. Plays the Broncos in round 17, plays the Bulldogs in round 18, which is not two great defensive matchups. Does open up after that. You got the Raiders, the Tigers, Parramatta, the Dolphins, into Manly. So it's not the end of the world. I would be selling him if he's your centre wing 3. If he's your centre wing 5 or 6, then probably holding him.
If he's your centre wing 3, you've got some bigger issues going on, though.
Attaboy, Mr. Calio. He's holding him till the end. I'm with you, my friend. We're going to put the stake in the ground and never admit our losses.